You know, it's interesting. The Torah begins with the letter Bet, which we're taught means blessing. And the very last reading, the portion that we read, is called V'zot HaBeracha, which of course, again, is the word blessing. We begin and end with the concept of a blessing. Now let us appreciate a deep, deep understanding and appreciation to really one of the most important blessings that we get from Moshe Rabbeinu in this final parsha before he leaves us. The verse speaks about Yisachar and Zevulun, two brothers, two of the 12 tribes. It says, Smach Zevulun b'tzeitecha v'Yisachar b'ohalecha, that Zevulun should be rejoiceful in his departure, and Yisachar should be happy in his tent. Smach Zevulun b'tzeitecha v'Yisachar b'ohalecha. Both Zevulun and Yisachar should be happy with their role in creation, with their role in life that Hashem gave them. What's Zevulun's role? Let's appreciate Zevulun's role. Zevulun is mentioned to be departing, leaving. Well, let us appreciate, where is he leaving from? And of course, Yisachar is told to be happy in his tent. What does that mean? What is his tent? What is it exactly that we're taught that he should be so happy about in his tent? So really, if we look at the day, every day begins with the idea of going to the same place. We all are meant to go to Hashem and take a good few moments or up to even an hour or so, connecting with Hashem when our day starts. It really begins with the Modeh Ani prayer, which is this idea of connecting to our source, connecting to our purpose, which is God and the reason why we're here. Taking it one step further, we have the idea of the morning prayers. Avraham Avinu, Abraham, founded the concept of turning to God at sunrise and praying and connecting to Hashem then, and we following in that idea, whether it's actually sunrise or a little bit later, because, of course, these days we are up much later with electricity, so we're up late at night, so sometimes we don't pray exactly with sunrise, but it's the idea of the morning prayer. That takes a lot more time, but that's, again, what we got from Avraham Avinu, the idea of praying to Hashem in the morning. And that's how we all start our day. Now, the Shulchan Aruch talks about, after one prays, one should, again, take the next step and learn about the ways of life, the ways of Hashem, and really what is our purpose and our particular way that we're supposed to function and behave in this world. And that's the idea of learning Torah. And so our day really begins with this concept of connecting to Hashem with prayer, that's us talking to Hashem, and then learning about and listening to what God has to tell us through his Torah. Now, with that in mind, let's appreciate. So Zevulun, starting the day that way, is really leaving. So what does it mean that he's leaving? It means that he's leaving the Beis Medrash and the Bet Knesset, the place of prayer and learning. He's leaving this wonderful, unbelievable, what we would call a heaven on earth opportunity situation. So, and this is a bit confusing. So the verse is telling him to be happy about this departure. Truth is, one is better off maybe staying, or one would maybe think that the best place, the safest place, and the holiest place to stay is in the Bet Knesset and the Bet Midrash, the place of learning and praying. But ultimately, that's not the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation is for us to be in this world. And that's what the departure of Zevulun represents. The idea of leaving the secure environment of the four walls of Torah and of the holy place like the Beis HaMikdash, and going out into the mundane world, the worldly pursuits. And it's important how we take that departure. So the verse here is telling us to be joyous, to be happy about that departure, which is a little bit puzzling because really, maybe we should say we should at least be sad or brokenhearted about the departure. Very common and a very accepted Torah perspective is that even though we have to leave the Bet Midrash, we shouldn't be happy about it. Now let's take a look a little bit at Yisachar. Yisachar has a different role. Yisachar represents the idea of Jewish leadership, which for Jewish leadership, their mundane, or sort of what's equivalent to our mundane, for them is the idea of guiding and educating the Jewish people and the world to follow the ways of Hashem. So for them, there is essentially no departure from the tent of Torah. We find this back with Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, because he's called a man that dwells in tents. It's a plural over there. Tents could be an understanding of the hidden and revealed parts of Torah. So the Jewish leadership, which is what Yisachar represents, they're men of tents, meaning they stay all the time in the Beis Medrash in order to really learn and guide the Jewish people. And so these two brothers represent really the totality of the Jewish people. Now, really, if we want to appreciate the depth of this, we should go back to Jacob. Yaakov and his brother Esav. We're taught essentially that really Yaakov and Esav represented this type of relationship, this type of partnership. That Yaakov's role was to be a man of the tent, which is to sit and learn God's Torah and be the spiritual guide, the spiritual advisor, and really to draw down the spiritual blessing from above by being a holy man that's really a little bit secluded and isolated in that divine role, like the Kohen Gadol that we see in the future. What was Esav's role? Esav's role was to go out into the field. He's called the man of the field. And that represents the idea of going out into the ways of the world, the mundane, and really, using the physical world, utilizing and harnessing all of the potential in the physical world to service the what's necessary for the Jewish people. And so really what we see in the story of Yaakov and Esav is the idea of this partnership, which we can then connect with body and soul. The soul is spiritual, the body is physical. The two dwell together and have to really live and function in harmony to see the real full purpose of the unity of body and soul that God intended. And that was essentially the real purpose of uniting Esav and Yaakov, to be this partnership, one dealing with more the physical and one the spiritual, but really working together as brothers, helping this world and the Jewish people reach what they needed to reach. Now, unfortunately, Esav rejected that role and rebelled and became a wicked man, a man that was, a murderous man. The Torah records many sins that he has done. So as a result of Esav departing from his divine role, so we see this idea of Yisachar and Zevulun. Meaning later on in history, we find two brothers, sons of Jacob, sons of Yaakov, that they split the duties of spiritual and physical. And they really represent like what would have been Esav and Yaakov. And that's how we could appreciate really what it means that the Jewish people have to really have both responsibilities now. And again, when we look around, we have to be careful not to criticize. There's a whole idea of people that want to learn, especially in Israel, people that are devoting their life to learning. And of course, we have an army to defend Israel. We have certainly many, many successful Jewish people in business. And, they donate, some of them donate a lot of their money or a portion of their money to helping different worthy causes. You can help hospitals, you can help, yeshivas, you can help a lot of things. But really, that's really the idea of the Jewish people and how they're meant to mesh together, to fuse together as one beautiful people, as we're compared to sometimes the colors of a rainbow. We all have different purposes, but together we make the completion of a people that are self-sufficient, helping each other, respecting each other, building each other up, never putting each other down. And that's the beauty of this blessing from Moshe to Yisachar and Zevulun. It says that Yisachar and Zevulun should both be happy. Zevulun should be happy in his departure from the Beis Medrash, because that's ultimately his purpose in life, is to go out and take with him all of what he learned in that strong connection that he built by praying and connecting to Hashem, and bring it out into the world. Be a godly man, make an example, be an emissary for God in the world, in the way he does his business and his personal relationships. In everything that he does, he represents and reflects that light of God in the world. And Yisachar represents the idea of the Jewish leadership, judges, rabbinic leadership. That's also, without that, we really would never know our way. We could become very lost. And so that's also needed. And that's really the idea of the full-time person that's devoted to Torah, like the Kohen Gadol and priests in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. And they're really necessary for both aspects, both roles among the Jewish people. So we cannot really look at the other side putting each other down. Rather, we must realize that we need each other. We need to help each other, support each other, respect each other, above all, love each other. And that's the blessing of Moshe, that Yisachar and Zevulun should be happy together, knowing that together they fulfill the divine will and create and facilitate a healthy, beneficial life for all of Klal Yisrael, for all of people, and ultimately for all mankind.